Welcome to your host, Trecia Thacker. I'm here in the studio with our guest, Stephanie Payne. Today.
Oh, I'm great. Thanks, Trecia.
Wonderful. It's such a pleasure to meet you. I understand that you are an aspiring author. Please tell me about the book you're writing.
Well, I didn't know I was going to be an author until I had a family issue, because I've been a nurse for 30 years, and when my mother got sick and was preparing to die, my other family members decided to come in and try to destroy all the documents that my parents had so carefully crafted so that there wouldn't be any family arguments.
I see. So please tell me more. What inspired you to write?
Well, so my sister and brothers came in and they started challenging the will and the trust and the medical power of attorney. We ended up in court. At one point, my mother's estate was paying for 5 attorneys, which is an extraordinary expense. And none of this had to be that way. And having watched many, many people die and helping many families die, as I've been a hospice nurse as well as a home care nurse for most of my 30 years, I realized that this wasn't right. And I've had some extraordinary experiences helping people die, I call it properly, with good support, good family support. I've done a lot of reconciliation. And I knew I couldn't reach my siblings in family war.
So you mean to tell me that your mother actually set up a legacy plan, a will perhaps, and that went awry? What happened?
She had all the documents. When we went to court, it was really funny. The judge actually said this lady doesn't need all this fighting, but because there was conflict with the family, that they had to actually conserve my mom, which is a legal term, which means they actually take away all your legal rights. You can't even vote, you can't even carry a lipstick with you. And it was just very humiliating to watch my siblings do this. Had to hire an attorney, and we prevailed in that I didn't actually win anything, but I stopped them from tearing apart the legacy plan that my father and mother had crafted almost 20 years ago.
I see. So in your book, what subjects do you deal with?
Well, when I wrote the book, I've actually written it 3 times. The first time was sort of an angry book, and that, of course, I didn't publish that one, and I'm still finishing the final copy. And I was on my bicycle one day. I ride my bicycle a lot, and it's almost as if my father was whispering in my ear, and I remembered how he died. And he had a living will, and he had collapsed on the floor, and anyway, they revived him and put him on life support. But because my father had crafted a living power of attorney, he had the documents that we didn't have to keep him alive for a long time. He was what they call brain dead and just kept alive with a ventilator. But over the period of a week, I coached my mother through for her to, nobody ever does this before. You only have one person in your life usually die, or maybe 2 that you're really close with. And I had to attorney and what the living will meant. And it actually took me almost a whole week. And with the doctors, of course, their support and the medical testing. And so finally, after a week, my mother actually came up with the final result is I need to go tell my husband goodbye. And I said, let's go in and say goodbye. And we had to unplug my father. And when and it was such an amazing story that I thought about that. I said, this story needs to be in the book. And then I thought of other stories. So instead of this first book that I wrote, which was sort of, like I said, an angry book, I ended up writing, I think, about short stories, and each of them has like a little moral or a little tale of like how to do it right or what went wrong, things like that. And
so it seems to me that you learned firsthand, not only being a nurse, a registered nurse for 30 years, and also you had to deal with this in your own personal life. How did you deal with all the emotional issues that surround working and dealing with death in your professional life, and now this is a personal, your mother, were you too close to the subject? Do you think you responded emotionally with your siblings?
Well, I think that's a really good question, because I've had so much nursing experience and I saw what my siblings were doing, and I knew that it wasn't right. I was able to kind of hold myself together, but going to court and all that was just horrible, and I knew what needed to be done. And in the end, you know, the right thing did happen. You know, she died. Have a lot of experience, and I knew I guess what was so amazing, I wasn't able to coach my siblings. Where all the hundreds and hundreds of patients that I've taken care of in the past, I was able to coach them, like, you know, call the family in, or get your documents signed, or, you know, what, lots and lots of things. There's lots of things that I would have done.
What advice would you give to people that are dealing with aging parents, and ultimately we know that they're going to leave this earth? So what would you like your legacy to be?
That's another really good question, because as this project has evolved, it's not just turned into a book. It's turned into a documentary, which I'm actually currently filming. I'm actually planning on talking to attorneys, senior citizen groups, and tell them that having a will, for instance, is really just not enough most of the time. There's a lot of other documents that need to be done for us to actually die without having a lot of family conflict, because actually one document in my mother's case was actually missing, and that was the durable power of attorney. And she was afraid to do that, because when you have a durable power of attorney, you actually like to have to hand over everything in your life when you become disabled. And that's a real hard thing to do. So one of the things to do is to have your legacy plan done early in life, and don't wait until you're 70 or 80, because then we have the ravages of heart disease or dementias and things like that. And make your decisions when you feel like you're of really sound mind.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, we thank you so very much for sharing this important. It is a subject that is not often talked about, and it can bring a rift between siblings, and we hope that your book will inspire many. So we'd like to thank you today for being our guest on In the Frame, and thank you for watching In the Frame, and we'll see you next time.